Korematsu versus United States. So, kind of like some context with the case, World War II. On December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Before Pearl Harbor, the United States had a stringent no foreign policy. However, when Japanese forces attacked Pearl Harbor, the United States felt that it was an invitation to join. And then this is just a quick quote. In his speech to Congress, President FDR declared that the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941 was a date which will live in infamy. So, what World War II meant for Japanese Americans. The attack on the United States led Americans to the belief that they should fear the existence of Japanese spies. In February 1942, just 2 months later, President Roosevelt, as a commander in chief, issued Executive Order 9066 that resulted in the internment of Japanese Americans. The order authorized that the Secretary of War and military commanders evacuate all persons deemed a threat from the West Coast to internment camps, and that the government called relocation centers further inland. Additionally, World War II meant unparalleled discrimination and injustices. This is just like a few pictures of the internment camps. So here's one in Manzanar, California, which is one of the most famous internment camps. This is kind of just a picture of the internment housing. And then the barbed fence, which are for those who made it over. These treacherous barbed fences were um, ultimately shot and killed. So this is Fred Korematsu. He's 23 years old at the time of the trial. Japanese American citizen who didn't complete an internment and left his and didn't want to leave his home or life. He had plastic surgery done on his eyes to change his appearance and renamed himself Clyde Sarah. On May 30th, 1942, about 6 months after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, the FBI arrested Korematsu for failure to report to a relocation center. After his arrest, while waiting in jail, he decided to allow the American Civil Liberties Union to represent him and make his case a test case to challenge the constitutionality of the government's order. So, a little summary of the actual case. Korematsu was originally tried in federal court in San Francisco, California. He was accused of violating military orders issued with the executive order that surrounded the internment camps. Korematsu was given 5 years of probation and was sent to an assembly center in San Bruno, California. Korematsu's attorneys later appealed the trial's court decision to the United States Court of Appeals, which eventually agreed with the original trial court's decision. Um, so some of the Supreme Court justices involved with this. In the back row here, we have Robert H. Jackson, William L. Douglas, Frank Murphy, and Wiley B. Rutledge. And then in the bottom row, there's Stanley F. Reed, Owen J. Roberts, Harlan Fiske Stone, who's the Chief Justice at this time, Hugo L. Black, and Felix Frankfurter. So, the ultimate Supreme Court decision was that on December 18th, 1944, a divided Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that the detention was a military necessity, not based on race. So, here are a few opinions written by the Supreme Court justices. One of the major ones was Hugo Black's, which decided that it was a military necessity and wasn't based on race as stated above. And then concurring opinion was that there wasn't any sufficient evidence present in the Constitution to prove that Congress is prohibited from implementing valid military orders. And then lastly, here are a few dissenting opinions. So for Murphy, he says, I dissent, therefore, from this legalization of racism. Racial discrimination in any form and any degree has no justifiable part, whatever in our democratic way of life. Then Roberts, also in his dissenting opinion, argued that his conviction was unconstitutional because his loyalty to the United States wasn't why he was convicted. He was convicted purely based on his race. So, recent importance of the case. So, the case has yet to be overturned despite its inherent racist ideology surrounding the decision. However, it was cited as precedence for a recent Muslim case that still hasn't been overturned. So, in a 5-4 ruling that gave broad leeway to presidential authority, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Trump's President Trump's travel ban that barred nearly all travelers from five mainly Muslim countries, as well as North Korea and Venezuela. So, Korematsu today. Following the court decision, Fred Korematsu continued to fight for the rights of Japanese Americans despite having not received the result he wanted in the court. He played a significant role in passing the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which gave a public apology and compensation to Japanese Americans who were incarcerated. In 1998, Korematsu was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. At the age of 86, Fred T. Korematsu sadly passed away on March 30th, 2005. His birthday, January 30th, is now entitled Fred Korematsu Day in the state of California. So just some interesting facts or significant facts about Korematsu versus the United States. It was the first time the court created a separate standard of review for a law utilizing a suspect classification, stating that laws which discriminate on the basis of race are immediately suspect and must be subjected to the most rigid scrutiny. Justice Murphy's dissent was actually one of the strongest denunciations against racism within the 1900s, despite the end result being for the racist ideology. So, Fred Korematsu Day is the first day in the United States to be named after an Asian American. Additionally, Fred Korematsu was born to an Asian American family who owned a flower nursery. And here are my works cited.